Recording in progress.
All right, I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. And we will start with a roll call. McKee here, Councilor Schultz should be here shortly. Bottoма? Yep. Behrenkamp? Here. Nichols? Here. Perfect. I'd like to stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Agenda approval, we have quite a few changes.
Yes, we do.
Reshuffling a few things. I think we will, this would be my proposal, that we move 10B up right after consent agenda, then go into 9, then continue on as it is in the agenda with 8, the rest of 10, 11, 12.
What was the reason for that?
Because Alan's going to be here a little bit.
Oh, okay.
So I will entertain.
Could I just note that we do have a couple minor changes on your desk related to the ordinances. There were a couple clerical changes. Natalie will go through those for the rental ordinance. We do have copies of the minutes on the dais, and then staff would request that we add 10C for administrative assistant for the Public Works Department, authorization to hire.
Perfect. Sounds good. I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Can I offer an amendment?
You want to withdraw that?
Yes, I withdraw.
Okay. John, go for it.
Where's 10C?
10C,
It'd be
it-
added.
Is it
It's
added? Where is
added. We don't have
No paper?
we didn't have there's an email in your inbox. We did interviews today, and due to the timing of the next council meeting, we're just going to ask for authorization for the mayor and city administrator to offer a conditional offer. We've done the job description and had
Yeah.
authorization to do the process.
Can we add that? Can I add that if it's in?
Sure.
We certainly can.
Or should we want to make that motion?
You make a motion.
Do we have a second? Perfect. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so that will, I guess, be consent.
Now I'll make a
Aye.
motion to, or you can, if you want to make another motion.
For what?
I think we included your
We just,
amendment to the other changes and then this one. That's all I think.
Oh, that
yeah,
was
but
mine.
we still haven't passed it.
So you gotta do
The
the
agenda.
overall too.
Yeah.
I thought you did.
No, because you went through it. So I
Okay,
can add
want to make that motion?
No.
Jeremy?
I make that motion.
Do we have a second? Perfect. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you all.
Okay. There we
Everybody
go.
keep up with that.
Got there in the end.
And in fact, we're gonna try and do the planning commission meeting the other night, so.
Commission representatives, we have Mark and potentially Lisa online.
We do have Lisa joining us virtually as well.
Great. Open forum.
Perfect. Anyone in the audience who would like to speak at open forum can come to the podium, state your name and address. Anyone joining us virtually can press *9 if you're on a telephone, or click reactions and raise your hand to speak on any of the items that are not on the agenda. Mayor and council, at this time, no one's raising their hand.
Perfect. And we will go on. We have no presentations today, so on to consent. Does anyone want to pull any items?
I'd like to pull 7D.
Okay. Anything else? No, I will entertain a motion to approve consent agenda items A through C and E through I. Anyone want to make that?
So,
Thank you. Perfect. All those in favor say aye.
aye.
Item D, thank you for pulling that, Jeremy. Actually, if you have it on hand, if you'd like to.
I just wanted to extend a thank you to the Corcoran Association for their generous donation of $5,000 for remastering City Park. It's a major project. We're well on our way in terms of total value raised, and it'll be exciting to see that progress. And I'm very grateful that they're willing to play a part in making sure that we can have a very successful new generation of that park for the next 100 years.
Said. I will, just for the sake of making sure we regular policy on thanking youth groups. Read the resolution. Whereas the City Council of the City of Corcoran, Minnesota is authorized to accept the donations of real or personal property pursuant to Minnesota statute section 456.03 for the benefit of its citizens and is specifically authorized to accept gifts. And whereas the Corcoran Area Athletic Association made a monetary donation to the City of Corcoran in the amount of $5,622.41 for the purpose of city park remaster planning. And whereas the Corcoran City Park is located at 20200 County Road 50, Corcoran, and whereas the City Council finds it appropriate to accept the donation and allocate the donation to the city park, or to the Park Dedication Fund, now therefore be it resolved, the City Council expresses its gratitude and acknowledges the generosity of the Corcoran Area Athletic Association and accepts the donation for the City of Corcoran and its residents.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Who is the Corcoran Area Athletic Association?
My understanding that it came from, this actually came from Kevin Dale, if I remember correctly. That's where the check came from.
Is that a city function now?
The function of the athletic, the city has taken over the athletic program. We didn't take any of the assets that I'm aware of. I need to double check into that, but my understanding is we took over the programming. I'm not sure exactly where these funds came from or how they were solicited, but yeah, I could look into that and get that information out to council.
Can I the planning, the city, this is my opinion, city park remaster planning is expensive. And this number occupies a pretty large item for that athletic association. Personal opinion is that I would reject them using that money to master plan the park and put it back towards the kids who benefit from the actual athletic association. If that's possible, I think, it's my thought, planning the park is a city function. And they're a nonprofit that I feel like, rather than taking a huge chunk of money to very expensive, a huge chunk of money to them was very expensive projects that the city, I'd rather not accept it and have them use it for the funding of the.
We could potentially table it and see if we could get a comment from them on why they'd like to make
Yeah,
commentary on why they'd like, or if they want to come in.
Yeah, I think we could get some additional information. At one point, there was some discussion of moving some scoreboards on the fields that were going to be renovated, so we,
I would think they
I
want
think
it to happen.
that they
very
want
much.
the park process to happen, and I know there had been some discussions related to it. Generally, when it comes to donations, if someone wants it donated to a specific type of program, we do have to move it forward with that. But if it's something that we want to ask a question to them, if they would like to have it donated into a different pot of money within the city or a different purpose, we certainly could do that. But generally, when they request it be used a particular way, we generally have to do that. That doesn't.
We could reject it and they can do whatever they want. But if it's like a thank you, we appreciate the gesture, but I would almost rather see that money spent. So I'll vote to table it, or I'll put the motion on the table to table it, and I would like to hear an explanation.
I would second that. I agree with John. It'd be nice to put it back into the program and such,
Okay.
unless there's a specific
motion and a second, just to clarify, tabling it to our next meeting, or maybe,
We could table it to the July 13th meeting and get some background. Like I mentioned, I think that there was some discussion of how to use those funds, and there's discussion related to scoreboards and when they would be used and when it would be part of the remaster. So I think that they landed on the remaster, but so that's my background I have so far, but we certainly can get some more information by the July 13th meeting.
does that work for you? Okay, good motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those,
Just a quick thing, a thank you for the gesture. That was no one feeling over
yeah, for sure, it'd be good to hear.
denying or anything like that. It's a lot of money taken out of the group. So.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
Okay. 3,
That's not why you pulled it, is it?
I pulled it to thank them.
Yeah. Sorry for.
there can be multiple reasons for something being pulled.
Apparently it was meritorious abstention, so that's it.
Alrighty, then on to, here's where it gets wild. 10B, new business, street maintenance. Kevin, give that to you.
Thank you, Mayor. If you recall, part of our annual road maintenance package, we've traditionally done a seal coat project where they essentially lay an emulsified spray down and then put aggregate over top of it. And then we moved to a fog seal, where you do the seal coat and then the fog seal as part of our paved maintenance program. We have been monitoring alternatives to that. That's an area that we want to maybe see improvement on. We want more effectiveness in that. So it's kind of an industry-wide thing where we're monitoring other options that are out there. And there's been ongoing monitoring of that, and we're really to the point where we believe we're prepared. We have engineering support, we have operations support, and my support to bring forward a recommendation to really just tweak our program a little bit and really include a maltine-based restorative seal. So it's very similar. You have an applicator truck that sprays it down. They sprinkle limestone on it. It's very similar, but it looks more like pavement than that covering that you see. The county just did a traditional seal coat and fog seal on 50 and 19. We have that in our program, but we're really going to a little bit of a different approach here with this recommendation. This would be prior to any other seal coats on top of it. So it would be a new overlay, a new road pavement. You'd spray this down early on in the process to basically regain pavement flexibility. It softens the pavement and really restores it because you get a lot of micro fracturing early on. So this would apply to our new development streets. It could apply to our downtown sewer and water. Could apply to the overlay on Larkin Road. So it's really something that it's roughly half the cost of the seal coat fog seal application, and it has really proven in Minnesota climate with some of our neighboring communities, it's really proven to be cost effective. So we feel like it's justified to include that in our program, and we really are excited because we can get more coverage, and I think we can extend the life of our roads quite significantly. There's a technical document in there from St. Michael. It's really technical, but the high level analysis is we're really softening the road. And instead of sealing over those cracks, we're really like restoring those cracks. And it's 2 recommendations, and then you can go to a seal coat as your 3rd. So it really just, if it's a 25-year design, we think we can get almost 35 years out of this at a very cost-effective initial rate. And again, it would apply to any road that we just put an overlay on. And our recommendation would be is to, basically reallocate. We'd have to go out for bids, reallocate the $75,000 in the 23 budget to really a catch-up year, and there might be a catch-up year next year, and then we'd look at in future years, it might be half of our investment goes to this restorative and half of it goes to seal coats, right? We're really just adding a new feature to our program. But once you do seal coat, you can't do this. So it's really an early on thing that we want to gear up for with all the new roads. And like I said, it can apply to to the rural roads where we do overlays, you know, Corcoran Trail, east-west, downtown, even Larkin. We had some of the reps out, and that's a almost a 5-year-old overlay, and they're confident that it's going to bring value to us. So we're making the recommendation tonight to have us seek bids and kind of add that to our maintenance options for road management.
Anyone have any questions for Kevin?
I thought in the packet it said you could apply it over the top of the bog, so it was just a little less effective, but it was still beneficial.
I think maybe I think what I've heard and learned is you really want to do 2 of these treatments and then switch to your other routine. So you get a lot more value with it when it's just, I guess, the virgin pavement without a seal coat. So I mean, again, the cities around us are monitoring it. We'll continue to learn more. If it shows it's kind of overperformed a lot of the worries that we've had in a northern climate. So I mean, we'll continue to monitor and research options, but at this point, the recommendation is just to likely include 2 of these before a seal coat on our streets at this time.
It seems like a no-brainer, especially given the massive investment that a road will use. So kudos to the team for finding something to make it last 30 to 50% longer. That's a great sign.
It does seem incredibly promising. Kevin and I have talked about this before. Kevin was super excited about it. It does seem almost too good to be true in some ways, but I've talked to some other people. I spoke to the mayor of Rockford, and they love it so far. It's only been a year or 2 that they've been doing it, but they're very happy with it. So.
Yeah, we kind of intentionally wanted to monitor for 5 years to just not be the guinea pig, but there's been uniform happiness with it in the industry. So I anticipate a lot of growth this way. I anticipate a lot of growth with other products that are maltine based, you know, so we'll bid this out under norm qualifications, and I anticipate the market catching up pretty fast. There's different vendors that provide basically the same thing, so you know, long term the market's going to catch up and help hold that price down, but like I said, the current price is 50% of the seal coat, so we're comfortable from that aspect as well, that we're not sole sourcing something that we can't control, you know, cost, or there's not a competitive, you know, component to the program.
Okay. If there's no other questions, I'll entertain a motion to direct staff to seek quotes and adjust the 2023 budget line item towards maltine-based restorative seals.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Question real quick.
Yeah.
Out by Public Works and stuff on the intersection of 10 and 19, is there any chance the county can relay some aggregate over top of the exposed coils?
I mean, we could contact them.
Just asking. It's pretty sloppy on that corner, so
Yeah,
ton of traffic, ton of construction traffic right there too. So.
we've been in contact with their team, and I can't make any promises.
No.
They kind of run their program, but we can certainly put it in, you know, an email correspondence of that request and do what we can to. I can let Jessica know what their response is, and we can share that. But
They
yeah,
got a lot done. It's just
yeah,
it didn't dry.
yeah. I think the application to 50 looked like it turned out maybe a little bit better than up near Birchville, but some of that's timing and
Yep.
traffic volumes and whatnot. But I think that's just the challenge of that fog coat, seal coat, you know,
Just
which is why we're kind of it's you know.
thank you, but you're out there. You
Yep,
know what
we're-
I'm talking about.
yep.
It's pretty sloppy right on that corner.
Yep.
Thank you.
We'll send an email and let Jessica know of the response.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Good. Okay, on to 9A. And we'll have a public comment opportunity on 9A first, and go into the item, and then figure out what we're doing after that.
Sounds great. Anyone joining us in the audience who would like to speak on 9A, feel free to come to the podium, state your name and address. Anyone joining us virtually can press 9 if you're on a phone, or if you are on an electronic device, click reactions and raise your hand, and we can recognize you. Mayor and council, we do not have anyone raising their hand, and we have 7 participants, including ourselves, online.
Okay, then we'll go into 9A.
All right, thank you, Mayor and Council. So our police department uses a software called LETG for our records management and maintenance. As part of that, so our city bought a license and began using that in about 2012. We were one of the first handful of agencies in our area, formed a consortium so that we can have a common platform for how we manage and share records. During that time, that's grown to 14 agencies. However, in the last couple of years, we've, I guess backing up a little bit, since we've joined, LETG was sold from the original developer, and that company was again sold, and it's changed hands a couple of times. The newer companies have not continued to make developments. They support it, but they haven't continued to improve it in any way, and over the last couple of years, we're starting to see downtime and a lack of reliability. So that is currently now a hosted solution. What we're looking at here with the joint powers agreement is between the 13 agencies to bring back that data storage locally. The one agency that would be opting out is Hennepin County. They know that in their future they're going a different route. It has been included in the most recent CIP to get a new records management system, and that project is underway. We haven't decided or made any determination as to what that new RMS system is, but we do know a couple of things. One being that we need to do something to improve our reliability and make sure that we can maintain access to our data that we currently have, and being able to look back at that in a secure environment that we still are going to have access to it for the next 7 years over for data retention and our investigative purposes. So what this JPA is an agreement for the other 13 cities for us to collectively perform a project where that data is brought back on premise. In this case, South Lake Minnetonka agreed to be the fiscal agent and the host agency for the host server. And we'd be splitting the cost of the initial project to migrate that data back, and then an annual cost split evenly amongst the 13 agencies to make sure that we're basically back in control of our own data. Step 2 will be when we go with decide what our new records management system will be, and then this will essentially we'll make a determination if this actually was more of an archive or if we decide to do a data migration at that point. But this is really the step 1 is bringing the data back locally to improve that. And so the other 13 cities will be looking at the same agreement. The agreement was drafted, we're splitting the cost between all the agencies, but it was our city attorney that drafted the JPA. It would grant South Lake Minnetonka as the fiscal agent for the group. And then we would be responsible for our portion of the actual costs once they're incurred. So I think we're optimistic that hopefully the annual cost is lower than what's outlined here, but we won't know until we actually get to that operating point. So.
Sure. Any questions from that? Cool, Mike.
Apparently my regular mic isn't adequate.
Gotcha. Good deal. Okay, yeah, Matt and I, we've discussed this before. I think makes a lot of sense. I'll entertain a motion to authorize the mayor and city administrator to sign and execute the JPA entering the city into data storage, server sharing, and governance agreement.
So moved.
The second.
Second.
You get to pick. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Now on to, do we have a ETA on that?
Are we waiting on Alan for the development
I think
conversation? Is
planning
that the
business
request?
in
Okay.
general.
He was hoping to be here. He said he might miss the whole thing, but he was hoping to be here, so if we, and we didn't know if we'd have everyone, right, there were there were traffic concerns as well, so, but I think though, due to where we are with the agenda, we could either do the rental ordinance or the sketch plat, in either order.
Yeah, let's go with, what, technically amend the agenda if we do that,
We
and if we did it out of order.
We certainly could do that.
I'll make a motion to amend the agenda to move 8B ahead of 8A here, and we'll go right into 8B.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. 8B, rental ordinance, and property maintenance ordinance. And we do a public hearing, we go ahead and open that first, or?
So I'll do the staff presentation to explain the ordinance change, and then we can open the floor for a public
Sounds
hearing.
good.
Sorry, I should have.
Nope, give me just a
Separately.
second. Oops, nope, I'm on that's the wrong one that's up there.
Nope, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. There we go. All right, so this is the public hearing for the rental dwelling licensing ordinance, as well as a property maintenance ordinance that is going hand in hand. This was established as a 2022 priority for the council and was brought up with a few concerns in mind. There was a desire to limit the phenomenon of corporate entities buying up large amounts of homes, particularly single-family homes, twin homes, and townhomes within a community, with the idea to convert them into rental properties. Additionally, the potential for new neighborhoods that were developed with home ownership in mind to be converted into primarily rental neighborhoods. And then as we went through this process, the council identified it to be important to have an exemption for property owners renting to immediate family members. Next slide. So I know that this might be a little much for the council, but I do want to make sure I'm going over the highlights of the ordinance for anyone who wants to participate in the public hearing. So with the proposed ordinance, rental dwelling licenses will now be required for any non-owner occupied homes that are not occupied by the owner for continuous periods of 60 days or more. Additionally, it would apply to homes that are owner occupied and rent out multiple bedrooms to unrelated parties, basically a boarding house. It will be illegal to rent out spaces for living spaces, but they're not designed for residential occupancies, specifically sheds or garages. No property owner shall be permitted to license more than 5 rental dwellings that qualify as a single-family dwelling, twin home, or townhome, unless the property owner is a public housing agency, operates state-licensed residential facilities, or rented out more than 5 properties prior to July 1st, which is the proposed effective date, and applied for rental license for all involved properties prior to January 1st of next year. Additionally, there are some clauses the city attorney added to try to circumvent anyone that tries to use different LLCs to avoid this cap. So basically, any ownership interest in any type of entity will count towards the cap for this purpose. Next slide. So the rental dwelling license will be valid for 1-year cycles beginning on July 1st of each year. Residential rental property owners will have 180 days, not dies, to comply with the licensing requirements of this chapter, meaning they need to submit an application by January 1st. The rental property owners will have 365 days to comply with any property maintenance code violations that come up through the inspection process, unless there is a life-threatening violation, which in that case they'll have 30 days to comply. There are some licensing exemptions, so dwellings that are registered as relative homesteads with Hennepin County would not need a rental license. Whenever we get hotels, motels, or hospitals, high school dormitories, they would be exempt. Owner-occupied homes with rooms exclusively let or rented to immediate relatives would be exempt from the ordinance. And then owner-occupied homes with a single room let or rented out to no more than 2 individuals who are not related to each other. Or if they were to rent out multiple rooms to individuals that are related to each other, but not the owner. It's, again, a little complicated, but what we're trying to target here is boarding houses. Next slide. So property manager with a physical address within 90 miles of the rental property must be identified. It can be the property owner, it can be the tenant. Ultimately, the licensee is responsible for the property manager actions. In a low-density zoning district, which we've identified as 5 units or less per acre, no more than 20% of the lots on any block, as defined by the ordinance and depicted on the rental dwelling licenses map, which is in progress, can be issued a rental license. And so this was 25% with the last draft. We reduced it to 20%. This is the updated table. And then per direction of the mayor, the packet also included, for comparison, the 15% table and the 25% table. So if there were any changes we wanted to make, we can refer to those tables. Next slide.
Can I ask a question? Is 90 miles in the district, is that a accepted principle, or is it just a random?
So this was a compromise. So originally the draft said that they needed to be within the 7-county metro area, with the idea being they need to be able to immediately respond to an issue on the property. The police had pointed out that that means a nearby county that isn't in the 7-county metro area wouldn't qualify, but they're very close. So we did try to do a 2-hour radius, which I originally set out 120 miles, and then to that point, with discussions with police, even if they're 120 miles, that doesn't mean they'll get here in 2 hours, so that's why we reduced it to 90. So this is kind of a compromise between planning and police. And yeah, next slide. And then we do have a couple exemptions for the rental dwelling density limit. Again, state licensed residential facilities are exempt. Property owners experiencing a financial hardship who own no more than one other residential property within the city can request an exemption from the council. And then again, if the number of rental properties meets or exceeds the density limit now, and they notify us before January 1st, then that would be a situation where it would be exempt. So I'm not taking anything away for the people who have it now, but they need to notify us. Next slide. Licenses will not be granted to those under age of 18 years old. Citizens, or if they're not a citizen or resident alien, they would not be able to get a license. If they have overdue payments with the city, county, or state related to taxes, fees, and the like. Convicted within the last 10 years of a gross misdemeanor or felony, specifically if the crime is directly related to licensed activity, including property crimes, financial crimes, or offenses of a fraudulent, violent, or sexual nature, and the granting of the license would contradict the purpose of this ordinance, and the applicant has not shown by competent evidence sufficient rehabilitation. Additionally, licenses won't be granted to a person that is not the property owner, or entity that's not the property owner, and they need to pay their licensing and investigative fees first, and they also won't be granted a license if they're otherwise ineligible due to a prior revocation. Again, licensees are responsible for the acts of the property manager. Licensees are expected to maintain the property in compliance with the maintenance codes. We've defined this as the Minnesota State Building Code, the Corcoran Property Maintenance Code, which is also being adopted tonight. This is the city adopting the International Property Maintenance Code with some amendments where we've identified the city nuisance ordinances or Minnesota Building Code, those areas where we want those particular codes to prevail. Additionally, the Minnesota State Fire Code and other portions of the Corcoran City Code. Initial inspections by the city will be required before issuance of a rental license, and then renewal inspections will be required from time to time, but not expected to be required every year. Inspections will also be conducted when there is a reason to believe a violation exists. So for example, a tenant calls in a violation complaint. The violations of the maintenance codes involving the same property and same licensee, 5 violations of the maintenance code within 18 months will initiate a revocation hearing with the council. Next slide. Licensees are responsible for the conduct of occupants or guests. Violations related to disorderly conduct, public nuisances, noise nuisances, illegal sale of liquor, prostitution-related acts, assaults, and criminal damage to property will result in a strike against the license. 2 strikes within 18 months, the licensee must submit a written report to the city describing what action they're taking to prevent further violations. Once they have 3 strikes, then there will be a revocation hearing required with the council.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
There's public nuisance, illegal sale of liquor. Why would the also be like that?
So it's specifically the Minnesota, I may have overgeneralized it. There are specifically Minnesota state statutes that other cities have referenced, and the police wanted me to keep it as general as possible and just refer to the Minnesota state statutes. And they specifically pointed to, I believe it was Mankato's code, and that's what was in there. We could put in some language regarding illegal drugs. I believe that's covered under other disorderly conduct, public nuisances, and so. Are you comfortable with it, Matt, or do you want to add something?
I think it doesn't hurt to add the illegal drugs. I mean,
Okay.
I think just for clarity's sake, if that's what the council would.
Is there any chance you'd be willing to look up the Minnesota state statute so we know how to revise the language tonight?
The narcotics are addressed in 152.
Thank you. All right. Okay, a violation of this chapter will be a misdemeanor. Each day a person fails to comply will be a separate offense.
Can I just,
Oh, yeah.
liquor, can we have it be alcohol instead of liquor, because liquor is a specific type of alcohol?
Again, it was the Minnesota state statute, so I can see what they have it identified as if I used the wrong word.
No, that's fine, I just want to clarify. This is just a summary, and it's actually better stated in the actual statute than.
I can look at that when we go into the public hearing portion.
You could just sell beer to minors, come in here and be like, oh, there's no liquor, I'm selling beer. Technically, beer's not liquor.
Yes, I will see what the state statute actually has it titled as to see if I just switched a word.
340A is the sale of any type of liquor, but I can look at that just from our experience with liquor licensing, but we can look at that, exactly what that entails.
I like that you're walking through this.
Oh, yeah, no, not a problem. I was worried that you wouldn't like it.
I know that.
I'm like trying to speed it up for you.
I left the day this came out,
Oh, fair enough.
back the day of our meeting, so.
Okay, so then regarding violations, the city may, in addition to criminal enforcement, we may issue administrative offense tickets and or take action against a license, which can include denial, suspension, or revocation. Next slide. So wanted to call out again that the proposed effective date for this ordinance is July 1st, 2023. I'm just trying to have a very clean date for the sake of renewals and for the time limit for people to comply. The 2 documents on the dais incorporate a couple of changes regarding the ordinance 488. It was simply some typos. There was a paragraph where I said requires when I meant requirements, and for some reason I had the ordinance number as 493 when it's 488, and I still don't have it right on the slide. I don't know what's wrong. And an additional explanation was added in paragraph 4 of the resolution with findings of fact. Basically, the city attorney wanted us to just add at the end, and ensure adequate city resources are maintained, in addition to the interest of protecting the neighborhood character. Next slide. Oh, okay, there we go. So the city council should open the public hearing and take public comment, and then make a motion to, vote to close the public hearing. When they're ready for adoption, we can make any last-minute adjustments and make a motion to approve several. So it'd be ordinance number 2023-488, which is adopting the rental dwelling licensing ordinance. 489 is the summary publication. 2023-55 is the resolution for findings of fact for specifically this ordinance. And then we also have the property maintenance code. So we have ordinance 490 with the summary publication, ordinance 491, and then additional findings of fact for that specific ordinance. That's what I have.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go ahead and open the public hearing.
Anyone wanting to comment at the public hearing can go to the podium, state your name and address for the record. Anyone joining us virtually can press *9 if you're on an electronic device, or excuse me, a telephone. Otherwise, click reactions and raise your hand if you're on an electronic device. Mayor and council, at this time, no one is raising their hand.
I will entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, discussion on items, questions for Natalie?
Just Natalie on page 13 of 17.
Mm-hmm.
Minnesota state statute is written in there relating to the sale of intoxicating liquor.
Yes, we could change those words to alcoholic beverages, I believe.
So we could change those words. I would note that looking at chapter 340A, and it's the sections that they're talking about are it's illegal to make any alcoholic beverage is what it says in there.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we could change it
To alcoholic beverages.
Alcoholic beverage.
Yeah, so we could make that change. And then, did you have the statute number for?
Yes, so it would be Minnesota statute 152.021 to 152.027 for crimes related to controlled substance, or relating to controlled substance crimes.
Okay, so we could add that as paragraph 7.
I think when we discussed this last time, John, you weren't here. One of the points we discussed was should the table be revised from 25% to some lower number, remembering that when we originally discussed percentages, we increased it to 25 so that if we had a situation where people were in financial distress and not able to sell, they were less likely to encounter issues without having licenses available for them to rent. But now that we've added a provision to allow financial hardship exemptions to the density cap, that change might not be necessary. So I had suggested we consider the 15%. We were kind of on the fence about what that right percentage number should be, but we haven't gotten any input from you on it yet. Do you have any thoughts on the 3 different tables?
No, I do have, since you asked, I wasn't going to bring it up, but it's so hard to evaluate another person's financial distress. I have a hard time I don't know, it's very subjective.
If I could.
Yeah, I'm
Counselor
totally,
Bottoman.
yes.
My thinking is they would need to show that they've had the house on the market for a number of months without being able to sell it, and that would be the financial hardship. Columbia Heights is doing a similar ordinance update. They have a different situation, certainly, but they also are looking at a density cap, and they are including this hardship exemption, and the city attorney thinks it would be a good idea to allow for it. And we did limit it to those who may have possibly bought a home already, thinking they could sell. For some reason, market trends are not in their favor, and there's already the percentage of rental homes on the block. So,
I still, all that being said, I mean, you need to price it higher than what you actually should get. There's always a workaround when you have, like, people in Benton, financial hardships all the time. And, you know, I just,
again, the court cases that ended up being unresolved with this were related to that instance where someone put it on the market, were told they could not rent it out.
Yeah.
So that, again, it's trying to circumvent
Yeah,
those
okay.
concerns.
All right, fair enough. You've done your homework.
And this one, big.
I did.
She always does her homework.
Okay.
Um,
So I don't mind capping it, like you said.
So we have I think 20 is in the, 20% is in the draft. So we also have the table of 25%, what that kind of equates out to, the actual number of homes per block. It's not as direct as the chart would maybe indicate, but give you a ballpark idea. And also the 15%.
I don't, like, lower the better for me, but I kind of,
I would agree. I prefer the 15 if we get to pick between the three of them, because I think it adequately addresses the hardship issue with the other provisions that have been changed. And it helps to avert having too high of a concentration in a particular block. I think Alan had the example that you could have, depending on block size, 5 or 6 on one street that are all rental that might have a greater propensity for issues because they're concentrated.
I think that works for me. So to put that in, we need to amend
Yep, so,
ordinance 2023-488, I-1, table 1.
I-1 will change the paragraph verbiage to no more than 15%, and then table 1 would be changed to 15% values, and I'll be able to make those changes.
Perfect. I will entertain that motion.
I will make that motion.
Okay, do we have a second? Any further discussion? All those in favor?
You guys go ahead, I'm sorry.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, so now we got 15% in that. Do we have any other discussion points we want to go over? John had a couple that we were working on language.
Yeah, so that was my question. So for Counselor Bottoma's concerns, it'd be section 11807, paragraph A, subdivision 3, changing intoxicating liquor to alcoholic beverage, adding paragraph 7, Minnesota statute 152.021 to 152.027, related to controlled substances. And we would need a motion, I believe, for that.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say
Aye.
aye. Anything else on this one? Okay, then I will, think we can get this all done in one motion? I think so. Couple forfeits, right, nothing beyond that.
Yeah, as long as we get forfeits for the summaries.
Correct.
I will entertain a motion to adopt ordinance 2023-488.
I'll just do it.
Go for it.
You don't have to read it.
Go for it.
Make a motion to adopt ordinance 488.
Perfect. I'll second that. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Is that everyone?
Can
Now,
I ask one question?
yeah.
Did you have fun with this?
You know, it was,
You almost had a grin there.
well, because it's been so much work. This was a big one. But it was a challenge. I learned a lot. It's a bit beyond the planning scope typically, so I think I did have a little bit of fun somehow. But so I thank you for the opportunity and your trust in me to put this together.
Well
Good
done.
job.
Thank you.
All right, now we are on to 8A. So we'll have well, because we had a public hearing for B, we'll have a public comment opportunity on 8A, in case anyone is interested, and then we'll go into 8A.
Anyone in the audience who would like to speak on 8A can come to the podium, state your name and address. Anyone joining us virtually can press *9 if you're on a telephone, or click reactions and raise your hand if you're on an electronic device. Mayor and council, at this time, No one is raising their hand.
Let's go into the
Mr. Mayor, I don't mean anything wrong by this and such, but this is a sketch plan of a development and nobody here to talk to.
We do
That's
have
not
someone
true.
here. We do have
He is
someone
here.
here.
All
Yes.
right. Thank you.
Okay, so this is the Lure Sketch PUD. Next slide. The applicant, Bergeron Homes and Development Incorporated, represented by Mike Bergeron, who is in the audience here, is soliciting feedback from the council on a sketch plat for roughly 40 acres of land that is located directly west of Cook Lake and north of the County Road 10 and Fur Lane North intersection. We will refer to it as the Lure property for this application. Next slide. The sketch plat has 75 single-family home lots and is requesting a minimum lot width of 55 feet. It also proposes an off-road trail along the northern property boundary that then drops down to the south, wrapping around Cook Lake, and connects to the existing trail system to the south at Cook Lake Highlands and Bass Lake Crossing. This is similar to what is shown on our 2040 comprehensive plan. The proposal has an estimated net density of 2.34 units per acre, and the primary access would be from an extension of Fur Lane North, but the plan does incorporate two eventual connections to the west when the Chastec property develops eventually. Next slide. So the property is currently zoned RSF2. For PUDs, we typically also compare the request against RSF3 standards as well. The proposal requests a minimum lot area of 6,690 square feet. Again, a minimum lot width of 55 feet. Proposes an increased front setback to 25 feet, a side setback of 7.5 feet for the minimum separation of 15 feet. They did not specifically request a setback deviation for the driveway that's typically at 10 feet, but it may be required looking at their plans. And then the rear setback they're proposing is 25 feet. It is possible the applicant may also need to request flexibility for approval of a subdivision with a post-development density between 2.5 to 2.99 acres. That's not clear, right? I'm sorry, 299 units per acre. It's not clear right now what the final density will be, but just wanted to call that out as part of the discussion tonight. Next slide. Most of the property is within the shoreland overlay. A portion of the site in the northeast may not be subject to the shoreland overlay. This will need to be confirmed based on the elevation of Cook Lake and with the DNR as the application moves forward. With the shoreland overlay, the minimum lot area is actually 20,000 square feet. And again, the proposal is requesting a minimum lot area of 6,690 square feet. Most of the smaller lots are located in that northeast corner, so it's possible that it actually could be a little higher than this, but it's going to depend on the shoreland overlay extent. So that will be something confirmed.
Can I ask a question about that?
Yes.
Like, that's a black and white thing. They can't do it unless they get an exception, or unless it's not. Like, we don't get to offer exceptions to a DNR standard, correct?
We can do PUDs in the shoreland overlay. There is, the DNR did see the sketch plan and submitted some comments. The extent of how much, or there's some confusion as to whether our shoreland overlay district will prevail over the current rules, and how much of the project actually is within the shoreland overlay and the DNR overview. So if the council is overall happy with this or provides positive feedback with this proposal, then staff is aware that we're going to have to work with the DNR and the applicant to confirm and navigate review requirements. We have granted PUDs with small lot sizes for Rush Creek Reserve in the shoreland overlay, and Cook Lake Highland was another example of a PUD that deviated from the DNR requirements. So I would say it's just there is going to be further discussion with the DNR. Today is really about what are your thoughts on it, and then staff will deal with the DNR. Again, so the minimum lot width instead of 125 in the shoreline would be as small as 55 potentially. Setback from the ordinary high water level, they are not requesting a deviation from. Instead of a 25% impervious surface limit, they are requesting a 50% impervious surface limit. Next slide. The buffer yard ordinance really only would apply to the west property line, where they would need a buffer yard class A, and so this is the table that they would need to look at and decide what width and plantings they would like to go with. The other property lines really don't have, I don't foresee any issues. They are not expected to buffer against Maple Hills Estate or the golf course. And then Cook Lake Highlands and Bass Lake Crossing, they just need to maintain a 30-foot setback, which is more than done on the current plan. Next slide. So those need to incorporate this in the landscaping plan. Next slide. All right, so this is the very first sketch plan we're reviewing against our new PUD ordinance. And so I broke it down into the PUD design standards, and then we'll get into the PUD public benefits. So PUDs are expected to have appropriate integration with the surrounding uses. Similar, if not larger, lot sizes are being asked for compared to what has been approved to the south at Bass Lake Crossing and Cook Lake Highlands. And similar lot sizes are expected to the west based on market trends in a previous sketch plan reviewed for that area. The smallest lots are located in the northwest corner nearest to Maple Hill Estates. And then the golf course, the backyards will be abutting the golf course, and the trail will provide a form of separation from the smaller lots in that area. Where there is no trail in the northeast corner, there are larger lots. Additional landscaping could be provided in this area to provide more of a transition if desired. Next slide. Variety and enhanced architectural standards. The applicant did provide a minimum of 5 different concept styles as required. This is an example of one of them. The applicant has not requested flexibility from our underlying architectural standards and will be expected to comply unless a specific flexibility is requested and granted through the negotiation process. Next slide. PUDs with this minimum lot size have a requirement for 12% minimum open space. This equates to approximately 3.85 acres required of upland, and the sketch plan currently shows 9.56 acres of upland. The applicant will be required to submit an open space plan with the preliminary application that further illustrates the use, function, and any proposed improvements for this area. Next slide. The perimeter buffer applies against arterial roadways, and this property is not near an arterial roadway, so it does not apply. Public accessibility is expected when there are features such as a lake, and this is accomplished with the current plan with the trail that runs along the Cook Lake Wetland Complex and connects to the dedicated trails in the south. Discretionary standards are something that council can advise on if they have standards that they see as reasonable and necessary to protect and promote the general health and welfare of the community. So if there's additional standards you'd like to see, please share that with us tonight so applicant and staff can work through that. Prohibited features and modifications, I do not see any with the current proposal. A 15% minimum separation is proposed between the detached dwellings. No interior perimeter roadways are proposed to run parallel along an arterial roadway, and the applicant did not request flexibility for minimum screening or buffering requirements. Next slide. So the PUD public benefits, what looks to be accomplished with the current plan without making changes, placement of uses so as to integrate with adjacent uses. Specifically, the open space area provides continuation from the open space and natural areas of Cook Lake Highlands to the south. A visual termini, they are proposing an entrance monument. Additionally, the northeast cul-de-sac arguably provides a natural termini as a lookout to Cook Lake Highland instead of homes placed in that area. Open space is consolidated and usable. Where there is a separation in the open space, it is connected with a green natural corridor and the trail. Natural resources and features are retained. There is a small but high-quality maple basswood community on the site and is noted on our 2040 comprehensive plan, and it's retained in its entirety. Additionally, lot size variety. The lots range from 55 feet wide to 98 feet wide. 44% of the lots have widths greater than 65 feet. 68% of the lots exceed a lot area of 7,500 square feet. Next slide. So I'm not going to run through all this because it was in the staff report, but there are additional public benefits that could potentially be added. They may even already be happening, such as the percentage of units within an identifiable neighborhood focal point and 1,000 feet from a park, but the applicant would need to provide exhibits showing that radius. And then their landscaping plan, we don't have that at this stage, but they could easily incorporate that. So really, of this list, what is most important to the council to have the applicant incorporate for the project to move forward? What is the least important to you? That's really the question. And then the staff report also goes over which public benefits are not applicable and which public benefits are unlikely to happen. So there's this slide's up here for reference for you through your discussion, and then next slide, as is part 2 here. So just available for your reference. Next slide. Oh, actually, go back to that slide. I apologize. There are a couple of questions. So the higher architectural standards, specifically, does the council want upgraded architectural treatment of the side elevations for lots 29 and 30? This is because the trail going through there makes these elevations more visible from the street, even though they're not technically facing the street, but that could be something negotiated to get this public benefit. Additionally, since they are proposing significantly more open space, this may ultimately be required by the DNR to get the PUD through the DNR. But is this seen as the city as a public benefit as well for the purposes of our review? That'd be a good question to answer. And I'm sorry, go back one more slide. One other question, extensive internal landscaping. Actually, I guess there's 3 other questions. Does the council want the proposed landscape islands within cul-de-sacs with the idea of adding more landscaping? We have in the past approved these as public benefits, but we've also removed them. So just clarifying with the applicant if we would like to see these or not. Does the council want more landscaping in the northeast corner to provide a transition to the golf course? And then use of preferred trees. We specifically say the northeast district plan for the suggested trees. This property is closer to the town center and our southeast district plan. So is there a preference between which trees they should incorporate, or could they incorporate trees from either list to receive this benefit or achieve this benefit? All right, next slide. And then one more. Okay, so next steps. If this were to move forward, the applicant will need to complete a feasibility study per the engineering memo. There would be a neighborhood meeting, and then they'd be able to apply for the preliminary stages of the application. Review by the DNR is also expected at this stage. And then the next 3 steps kind of happen hand in hand. A land use application for the final stage, watershed approval of the final grading and stormwater plans, and then WCA permitting for wetland impacts. Next slide. So that's what we have. Right. Oh, and then I'm sorry, Mike Bergeron is here to introduce himself. I don't believe he has a presentation, but he is here for questions.
There is someone raising their hand online who has noted also in the comments that they do have a question relevant, and so if council would like to hear it.
Public comment? Wasn't
It
really, I don't know when the hand was raised.
It was raised after, during the presentation. And so they have a question that they have a question to.
I don't know.
It's your
I'd be fine taking it,
meeting, so.
as long as we're not, it's closed after this.
So we
we're not-
can-
Can't continue on, but let's go ahead and take one question.
Perfect. Brian Dejewski, if you want to go ahead and unmute and state your question for the council.
Good evening, everyone. This is Brian Dejewski, and we operate out of 7900 Maple Hill Road, just north of this proposed property. So thanks for taking my question. I realized I missed the open question time, but the presentation is what raised the question for me. Just something relevant to consider with regard to this PUD and Maple Hill Estates is if you look at the northwest corner of this property that's being proposed for development, there's you see a wetland in the northwest corner. And I know that Maple Hill Estates, all of the homes in that southeast corner of the property of Maple Hill Estates deals with drainage issues currently. So they constantly are dealing with flooding issues especially in the spring. So just something to consider from a council perspective, this developer, if you're adding all of this impervious land or space right south of it, that could exacerbate that problem. So just something to consider when you're dealing with the developer. And all of your Deus microphones don't work, so it's like hearing a one-way conversation on the Zoom call.
I appreciate the feedback. We'll see if we can.
I can pass the mic.
Yeah, we can pass that one around. But I appreciate the comment and the information. If you can hear me. Okay, so does anyone have any questions for staff first or the applicant?
I'm representing the planning commission tonight. Can I make a comment?
Yep. Oh yeah, didn't think about that.
Thank you. My name's Mark Lanterman. I'm the chair of the Planning Commission. It's my understanding that tonight's presentation is to elicit feedback from the city council, almost in an advisory opinion role. And I just want to ask staff, I just want to ensure, because state statute states that advisory opinions are non-binding, and I just want to make sure that if council makes some recommendations tonight, that they understand that that's not binding on them and they have the right to change their mind in the future.
Yes,
That's all I have. Thank you.
thank you. And yes, our comments are non-binding towards the applicant.
Sorry to former Councilman Dejewski for trying to tell you. I know it's your meeting.
No.
Figured.
Brian should know better.
I don't know if he was on at the time at the beginning. Would be nice at some point if we could get, we can see this online too. One hand there is. Problem for another day. Any questions for staff or for the applicant? Or the applicant, do you have anything you wanted to share?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Just looking for feedback, I guess.
Gotcha.
Mr. Mayor, is this thing on?
Think so.
Deal.
Yes.
One of the conversations or one of the things you wanted feedback on is center islands in the cul-de-sacs and such. Knowing and understanding public works and stuff, they are not a fan of that. So would rather not have that, just because of some of the other things I see in some of the cul-de-sacs we have center islands. Again, thank you, Commissioner Landerman, on your comments on this is just feedback and information. The fence between the north property and the golf course stays intact, correct? I believe that fence is owned by the golf course itself. That's chain link all the way across there.
If it's owned by the golf course, I don't think the applicant would be proposing to take it down, but yeah, so.
And then my other question is, or my other statement is, the golf course has been there a long time. This is on the southern edge of a fairway, and there will be, I can guarantee there will be errant golf balls going into these folks' backyards. So if there's any agreements and such, the golf course was there first, and the number of people complaining about golf balls hitting their homes, those kind of things. it's going to happen. I would hope it wouldn't be one of mine, but I've sent a few of them over that fence in my time. I like this whole thing, 40 acres, the number of homes, the number of units per acre. I love how the preservation of obviously the lake shore and everything else is in this. This is a reason the smaller lot widths are good. A question that I have, Natalie, you can maybe give it to me. I think it was up there, we kind of jumped over it. Our friends in Bass Lake Crossings, those lot widths range from 50,
As low as 50?
as
That's
low as
like-
50.
and
This
Cook Lake
is
Highlands.
bigger than. A conversation with the neighborhood is big. None of this is part of the property to the west.
Correct.
You're doing your own thing? Okay. So do those two roads line up? I think they do with the proposed.
Yes. Yeah, typically we would require a ghost plat with those kind of road connections to make sure it would work. But because we have seen a concept plan that shows those exact road connections, we're confident that that would be appropriate, so.
These are all single-family homes?
Correct.
No rentals?
No rentals are proposed.
Okay. I got nothing more.
Thank you, Mr. Bergeron. I guess I do have one question for you.
Sure.
The packet indicates that the homes will have patios and decks. There's room for that. Will they be there when the homes are constructed, or will those be added on after the fact?
No, everything will be done right away. We're currently doing a development Timber's Edge in Plymouth, so it's basically gonna be the same concept. I'm really in favor of the mixed lot sizes. Really gives us an opportunity to do a lot better job with house plans, design. A lot of people like the 3-car wide, we're finding, hard to do on all, pieces of property, but, I feel that's important. If we can, work with the lot sizes, that would be beneficial for the marketing.
Very good. I took notes as I went through the packet, so I'll just go in order of the packet with my comments. The question on cul-de-sac islands, I am a fan of those if they can be done in a way that's sustainable, meaning the grass doesn't just die and the trees don't get bowled over by snowplows. In this particular application, if you could go to the overview of the different lots.
The lot variety or the aerial view?
Aerial view.
Okay, right there.
So there was mention about the northwestern point potentially being an overlook. There might be an opportunity to do something like a hardscape island, maybe with some kind of a pergola, something like that, to make it more obvious as a destination, as an overlook, as opposed to traditional, tree and grass around the center. You might not even need a full cul-de-sac here. Maybe that becomes more of a plaza area, and you just get access to the driveway. Just a thought, since there's not homes all the way around.
Probably have some sort of turnaround.
Yeah, they will need some type of turnaround, so that would need engineering and public safety. But I think that was one of the suggestions I had, it was to add some kind of, if the DNR would allow it in the open space, some kind of pergola or gazebo to kind of really enhance the overlook aspect.
Given the number of trails, sorry, I didn't mean to blind you with the laser. Given the number of trails, I like how much of them there are. I would encourage you to be cognizant of some issues we've had with trails next to wetlands in Corcoran, where willows or some kind of plant tends to push up from the bottom and fracture the pavement. We haven't found a good solution to that yet, but given how much of this is going to be along wetland, I would just be aware if that is a potential risk.
Wasn't there some comment by staff that some of this might need to be boardwalk?
Particularly in the northwest corner, because he'll be impacting a wetland. And it needs to go to the property line so that it extends when the west property gets developed. And I think two of the trail questions for staff was as far as public benefits go, do we want to see, would we like to ask the applicant to pave it? He would be responsible for the base. Typically, we reimburse for pavement, but it has been a public benefit in the past to have it paved at the developer's expense. And then additionally, would we like to ask the applicant to pave the small stretch within Cook Lake Highlands that's currently proposed to be gravel, so that it's pavement all the way to Bass Lake Crossing, where it is currently paved, to my understanding. So those were the two kind of public benefit questions related to the trail.
Gotcha. Jeremy, do you have any, you got a mic?
I do for now, yes. I would see benefit in having it paved. I know there was some interest from the residents when Cook Lake Highlands came back for its modification. Could that be something we could get handled, give it an extra park dedication? Look after as part of this project. I think that would be a benefit to the local residents in that area. And I'm open to paving either way, honestly. I do think one of the factors we're supposed to look at is, are there opportunities to integrate with neighboring properties? I think the trail connection and bringing that trail up and around this development is going to be valued highly by the folks in Bass Lake Crossing who love their trail. So I would consider that extension to be positive, and the better that trail can be in terms of plantings and number of routes available, the bigger that benefit would be. I was going to suggest one of the things that we like to see is an internal trail network, and staff report indicated because this is all peripheral, it wouldn't really count as that. But I'm wondering if there might be an opportunity to have a connection between this area and go across next to the stormwater ponds and the wetlands all the way across, outside of people's yards, to create an internal loop that would give people other routes to follow as we're going on the trail. I like the proposal for LP siding on all four sides. I would see that as an element of enhanced design. In terms of the open space itself, I would consider either natives or pollinator-friendly ground covers, if possible. And in terms of the tree types to select, looking at the different lists that are in code, I felt the Northeast District was the most comprehensive. I don't think Town Center makes sense because there's no conifers on it, and we would want to mix.
Can I interject on the comment on the topic of trees? I kind of always advocate for this, but seeing some mature plantings mixed in to get some kind of variety of more mature trees already in there when a development starts, I think goes a long way. That's something I'd personally like to see. I think in general we've supported that on a few other sites.
Absolutely. Trees are one area where bigger is better, as long as they can still thrive.
Does does mayor's mic work?
I don't know, I have three, so I was
It sounds
hoping.
like they can hear Dean, and they can hear you when you're about there. And we've not.
Was good.
Okay.
And staff is good.
So it's just that one mic
Just
on the end.
me.
We did a lot of testing this week. Michelle tested on every single mic, and it may be a connection issue.
Statistically, it should be good.
Yeah. You do have three in front of you, so.
One of them should pick it up. I could take Alan's too.
I like the amount of open space in the plan. I'm a big proponent of conserving as much natural space as we can. I think this does a good job of that. I'm not sure how you're envisioning using the open space. If it would just be, kept as native prairie, if there were other things that would be incorporated. And it sounds like the DNR might have a voice in what is allowed in that area.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, I don't know if it's too far off of what we would like to see, but I do think that as we do the preliminary, we'll get a better understanding of the DNR requirements so that when it comes back to you as a preliminary application, you fully understand what that might look like. He has, as I said, an open space plan has to be submitted, so that could be addressed with some of that.
Just for some context, along the fringe of that wetland, there's a fairly steep drop off, so you're kind of elevated the buffering takes most of that up, so that trail would be elevated quite a bit above the water. Just some context that might, doesn't show with the contours. So you're up once you get out of the buffer. Just for
Makes for a good view.
Yeah.
That's great.
Mm-hmm.
It would be good to continue the trail across to the Chastec parcel when it develops. I think that's in the comp plan, so it would have to be done regardless. I wouldn't consider a gateway sign to be a visual terminus because it's an entrance, not the end of a road or the center of a development or a center of a neighborhood. But I think the cul-de-sac islands could be, or different things that you put along the trail system might be visual termini instead. I think there's opportunities to do them and get that benefit. I think if it's possible to create connections to the trails through the cul-de-sacs, that would also be beneficial. It looks like it might be a little tight for that though. The use of native plants and landscaping was another potential benefit. Another thing I would throw in there is if there's a possibility of adding soil amendments where we find really heavy clays, that might also be a potential benefit in terms of allowing things to grow with less water in the future and needing less fertilizer. We have a tendency in Corcoran to have a lot of things not thrive when they're first converted into development, so a few inches of black dirt might be a good benefit as well if you can factor that into the plan. The natural restoration work idea, there was something here around removal of buckthorn.
Oh, yes, Councilor Nichols, that is just more of an example. I don't know if there is buckthorn on the property. Yeah, so that was one of the ones I listed as probably unlikely to be incorporated in the project.
I was just going to ask the question because I think buckthorn removal is a requirement, given that it's a noxious weed in code, but maybe I'm wrong about that.
There may be some along the fence on the north.
When you're looking for your golf ball?
Yeah, you would be looking through the fence, if I remember right, there may be that nuisance there.
There was a question about buffering to the golf course. I would say it seems like it's probably a bit of a safety issue, depending on how high that fence is. So with the tee boxes pointing at the houses, we probably should have something in the landscaping plan that would grow up over time to solve that. And I think that was all that I had. Thank you.
That's some good ones. Good. John, if you have anything?
I have no opinion.
Okay, fair enough. I didn't have too much else to add from what Dean and Jeremy have gone over and my comment about the mature plantings. The only thing that kind of concerns me up front is there's not really a ton of options, but construction access. I know staff was looking into whether or not there's potentially a route through an easement that exists. Just prefer it to not be all construction access through the existing development, when and wherever possible.
I think we can make sure that we exhaust all options, but it might be the only option.
Gotcha.
But he would be responsible, and the engineering memo notes that he would be responsible to mitigate anything, any impacts due to construction, so.
Yeah, and maybe something good to bring up if this goes forward with the neighborhood meeting. Good to bring up to make sure the neighbors are aware. And then I do like, and maybe you don't know this yet, but would you plan on doing this in one phase or?
No, I would do it in 2 phases for sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha. Which is great. And then kind of building up those secondary connections, depending on when the adjacent property developed and when you were built out there. Gotcha. That makes sense. Yeah, I think Jeremy, you hit on the trees up on the golf course side there. I had that on my list as well. I believe there was a comment by staff filed or a requested discussion item on some enhanced architecture on a couple lots. I would like to see that. I forget which lots exactly it was.
29 and 30.
Those two, yes. I think that would make a difference for me. I think that's really it for now. I think lots obviously dependent on the whole DNR aspect.
Mhm.
Be interesting to see how that process goes, but
Yeah. I think that gives us a lot to work on, and I think the next step will be to schedule a meeting with the DNR.
sure.
Yeah.
Good deal. Okay. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Alrighty, now on to, this agenda is all over the place. 10A, new business, we have a public comment opportunity for the fee schedule amendment.
Anyone, Jane S. Birchley can press *9 or click raise your hand under reactions to make a comment. Mayor and council at this time, no one is raising their hand.
Okay, and then we'll go into the item. Is everyone aware this is basically related to the rental dwelling license ordinance that we just voted on and put in place a couple items ago?
I move to adopt ordinance 2023-492, amending the 2023 fee schedule.
Second. Alrighty, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And then on to staff reports, I believe. Someone correct me if I missed anything.
No, double checking here, I think we
that's
have
everything.
discussed everything that we had wanted to. So
Good deal.
staff reports are just a couple updates from staff on planning and where we are with making progress on our goal.
Deal. Any questions on those? Okay, council schedule, as Natalie said earlier, either in the meeting or before the meeting, it's not too bad. It's short term, but the August meetings could fill up quite a bit between now and then.
Mhm.
Right now, it doesn't look too bad on the schedule. Hopefully my Demon Deacons are winning, and with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.